You have been taught to admire the wrong god. Athena, goddess of wisdom, goddess of strategy, the calm, composed protector of heroes, the one who stands apart from the petty jealousy and reckless cruelty of the other Olympians. She is the good one, the rational one, the one you are supposed to trust. Forget that image completely. Because when you actually look at what Athena did with her power, not what she said, not what poets centuries later decided to emphasize, but what she actually chose to do to three specific individuals who never wronged her, a very different figure emerges. One who did not use wisdom to seek justice. One who used it to seek the perfect punishment, and to make certain it would last forever. Tonight, we are examining three cases. A woman transformed into a monster for being a victim. A weaver destroyed for being talented. And a boy blinded for seeing something he never asked to see. By the end, you will understand why some ancient sources treated Athena's calm, composed nature not as a virtue, but as something far colder and far more calculating than the rage of any other god on Olympus. Case 1. Medusa. You already know the ending of this story. A woman with snakes for hair. A gaze that turns flesh to stone. Hunted down and beheaded by a hero for glory. What most retellings leave out is how she got that way. And who was actually responsible. According to the older Greek tradition, Medusa was once a beautiful mortal woman, a priestess serving in Athena's own temple. She had taken a vow to remain chaste, to dedicate herself entirely to the goddess she served. Poseidon, god of the sea, saw her, wanted her, and took her inside Athena's own temple without her consent. This was not a romance. This was an assault, committed by a god against a mortal woman who had no power to refuse him. And it was committed specifically within a sacred space that was supposed to guarantee her safety. Athena arrived or somehow became aware of what had happened. And here is where the goddess of wisdom made her choice. She did not punish Poseidon. Poseidon was a fellow Olympian, and confronting him carried real political risk. So instead, Athena turned her fury toward the one person in this entire scenario who had the least power of anyone involved. She cursed Medusa, not Poseidon. Medusa. Her once beautiful hair was transformed into a writhing mass of venomous serpents. Her gaze, once ordinary, became a weapon that turned any living creature into solid stone. She was exiled from human society entirely, because simply existing near other people meant killing them. Think carefully about what this curse actually communicates. Athena took a woman who had been violated in her own temple, and made that woman's own body into the instrument of her permanent isolation. She did not simply fail to protect Medusa. She took the crime committed against her and transformed the victim into something monstrous, something to be feared and destroyed on sight by any hero looking for glory. And this is the version of the story that eventually leads to Perseus arriving with a mirrored shield, decapitating Medusa while she slept. Athena, notably, is often depicted assisting Perseus directly in this hunt, providing the reflective shield that allows him to kill Medusa, the goddess who cursed her into monstrosity in the first place. Later helped orchestrate her execution. If you are looking for calculated cruelty dressed up as strategic wisdom, this is where it begins. Case 2. Arachne. If Medusa shows Athena punishing an innocent victim, the story of Arachne shows something else entirely. A goddess who could not tolerate being outdone by a mortal. Arachne was a mortal woman, extraordinarily gifted at weaving. So gifted that people whispered her skill must have come directly from Athena herself. Arachne rejected this comparison entirely. She insisted her talent was entirely her own. And she went further, claiming she could outweave Athena herself. This was an enormous act of hubris, the kind of boast that virtually guaranteed divine retaliation. Athena, disguised as an old woman, approached Arachne, giving her a final opportunity to apologize. Arachne refused. The goddess revealed herself, and the contest began in earnest. Both wove magnificent tapestries. Athena's depicted the 12 Olympian gods in glorious, dignified splendor. Arachne's tapestry depicted something very different. The gods themselves committing acts of deception, betrayal, and sexual violence against mortals. Zeus disguising himself to assault various women. A catalogue of divine misconduct. And here is the detail that should unsettle you. Arachne's tapestry was not simply defiant. It was flawless, technically superior in execution to the goddess's own work. And worse for Athena, entirely truthful in its content. It depicted real transgressions that the gods had genuinely committed. Transgressions Athena herself could not credibly deny. Athena could not defeat Arachne through skill alone. So she did something else instead. In a blind fury, she tore Arachne's tapestry to shreds, and struck her repeatedly with a wooden tool used in weaving, beating a mortal woman for the crime of weaving something too accurate and too skilled. Arachne, in despair and humiliation, tried to hang herself. And this is where Athena's punishment becomes something almost worse than death. She did not let Arachne die. She transformed her instead, permanently, into a spider, condemning her to weave for the rest of eternity. Stripped entirely of human dignity, doomed to repeat the very skill that had provoked the goddess's fury. Forever, as a spider rather than a woman. Every single spider you have ever seen is a direct descendant of a woman whose only crime was being extraordinarily talented. Athena made absolutely certain that Arachne's talent would never again be recognized as human achievement. Case 3, Tiresias. If Medusa shows misdirected fury, and Arachne shows intolerable jealousy, the story of Tiresias shows Athena's cruelty in its purest form. Punishment delivered for an act that was not even remotely intentional. Tiresias was a young boy, the son of a nymph named Chariclo, who was a close and beloved companion of Athena. This detail matters enormously, because Tiresias existed within her own circle of trust. One day, entirely by accident, wandering in the countryside, Tiresias came upon a spring where Athena was bathing. He saw her. Not deliberately. Not as an act of violation. He simply happened upon the scene. Athena's response was immediate, and it was absolute. She struck him blind on the spot, permanently and irreversibly stripping away his sight, as punishment for having witnessed something he had no way of avoiding. Chariclo begged Athena desperately to reverse the curse, pleading on behalf of her son, reminding the goddess of their long friendship. And Athena's response reveals something crucial about how her cruelty functioned. She could not undo the blindness. This particular punishment, once delivered, was beyond even her own power to reverse. But in a gesture dressed up as a gift, she granted Tiresias the gift of prophecy instead. The ability to understand the language of birds and an unusually long lifespan. Sit with that exchange for a moment, because it is genuinely disturbing. A boy is permanently blinded for an accident he could not have prevented. An accident that involved no malice. And the goddess responsible offers not an apology, but a consolation prize dressed up as a gift. This was not justice. This was a goddess demonstrating that her personal dignity mattered more than a child's eyesight. The pattern. Look at what connects these three stories. Because the pattern is where the real horror lives. In every single case, Athena's target had committed no genuine crime against her. Medusa was the victim of an assault. Arachne's actual offense was being skilled and honest. Tiresias's offense was an accident of geography and timing. And in every single case, Athena's response was not proportional anger. It was total, permanent transformation of the victim, specifically designed to outlast the original incident indefinitely. This is precisely why Athena's particular brand of cruelty is arguably more unsettling than the impulsive, hot-blooded rage displayed by gods like Mars or Poseidon. Their violence tends to be immediate and often eventually forgotten. Athena's punishments were calculated, deliberate, and engineered specifically for permanence. She did not lash out. She designed consequences meant to last for eternity, with the same careful, strategic precision she was famous for applying to warfare. That is the disturbing truth hiding beneath the goddess of wisdom's calm reputation. Wisdom, in her hands, was never separate from cruelty. It was the very mechanism that made her cruelty so effective, and so rarely questioned. Hades ruled the realm of the dead, bound by rules he rarely broke. Zeus was driven by recognizable motives: lust, fear, the preservation of his throne. Athena's cruelty had no such excuse. She was driven by wounded pride, by the simple intolerable fact that someone weaker than her had witnessed, outperformed, or accidentally inconvenienced her. And she used the full, calculated power of a goddess of strategy to ensure that inconvenience became a permanent, inescapable curse. So here is the question worth sitting with. We are taught to admire wisdom above almost every other virtue, to trust the calm, rational voice. But ask yourself what wisdom is actually worth. If the goddess who embodied it used every ounce of that intelligence, not to seek fairness, but to make certain that 3 innocent people suffered consequences engineered to last forever. Perhaps the most dangerous kind of cruelty was never the loud, impulsive kind. Perhaps it was always the quiet, composed, perfectly rational kind, delivered calmly by someone wise enough to make certain you could never undo what she had done to you. If this kind of story pulls you in, subscribe, because there are darker gods and older nightmares still waiting in the depths of this mythology. And I am not done pulling them into the light.